My name is Parker Palmer, and I'm here with my good friends and colleagues, Rick Jackson and Marcy Jackson, co-directors of the Center for Courage and Renewal, with the joy of some time to have a conversation about the friendship and work we have shared for 25 years now, if we go all the way back. It really does amaze me, Rick, first of all, that you and I met 25 years ago, I guess on the basis of a piece of writing I had done. And then I remember a few years later, just maybe 5 years later, that was in maybe 82, meeting Marcy at your home in Minneapolis when we were together planning a retreat for Kellogg National Fellows in which not only the fellows but the spouses were to be fully involved. And we went ahead and did that in Taos, New Mexico. And it's amazing to look back for me to say 25 years ago, you and I meet, 20 years ago, I meet Marcy. 15 years ago, we start working together to create a program called The Courage to Teach. 10 years ago, the Center for Courage and Renewal is established. You become the co-directors. I become your close partner in all of that, you mine. And here we are today to talk about a stream of work that has grown from a trickle to a flood around the country, serving so many people, not least us, wonderfully well. And today we're able to look around the country and see 150 facilitators working in 30 states and 50 cities hosting these circles of trust for teachers and administrators and lawyers and physicians, and doing remarkable transformational work in the lives of these people, hundreds, maybe thousands of people, and the institutions they serve. And I guess what strikes me at this moment is how all of that is rooted in a friendship that started a long time ago. And the way in which somehow friendship and vocation seem to go together in a mysterious and wonderful way, that when you meet someone that you identify as a friend, somehow part of that is recognizing that you share a reason for being on earth. You share a purpose or a mission. You know what I'm saying?
I do, Parker. I remember meeting you first, as many people meet you first, in a piece of your writing. I was in campus ministry, and you were doing a lot of work with campus ministers through the Danforth Foundation at that time, and you'd written a piece called Campus Ministry, a Pastoral and Political Vocation, holding a paradox, as so much of your writing does. And I felt found, I felt discovered at that point as I read that. And as it turns, within a year we were able to meet, and you spoke to a national gathering of folks.
Well, I remember when we met, I just felt, here's a guy whose heart is in the right place, whose mind is right there with his heart, and that's how I felt when I met Marcy too, someone whose gifts just could help carry this work forward and also kind of help me expand my own life. I mean, I think that's how I felt about both of you. This wonderful shared sense of friendship and vocation. It's amazing to look back on those early, almost unconscious origins, and to say then that in the early 90s, with the help of our friends at the Fetzer Institute, we started, I at first started putting together a program for teachers called The Courage to Teach, which created these hospitable spaces like the ones we created at Taos for those Kellogg Fellows and spouses. And then when it became clear that this program for teachers was something they wanted and needed, and that the Fetzer Institute wanted to help multiply around the country, and the question arose, who should help us institutionalize this program and lead that institutionalization? You were the ones. You were the ones.
In light of what we were just talking about, it also strikes me as very interesting that none of us have ever said, can I hire you to do this or that? There's been a kind of deep listening followed by invitations that just kind of keep going. And I think that's certainly not limited to us. It's kind of flowed right out into this wonderful leadership-rich network of colleagues we have around the country that I think is marked mostly by this quality of invitational leadership. Gifts are recognized, gifts are invited forward, and something about the contributing of those gifts enlivens the collective as well as brings aliveness to the individual. That's certainly been the case for me, I think for us, Parker, in working with you.
It reminds me, Rick, of the immediate prehistory of the Center for Courage and Renewal, which at the time we were calling the Center for Teacher Formation because we were working with teachers almost exclusively, and only later started getting these calls from physicians and lawyers and others, which led to the name change. But I remember very clearly having done that pilot group of K through 12 teachers at the Fetzer Institute in 93, 94, I think it was, or
94 to 96.
94 to 96, that's right. And the Fetzer Institute deciding this is good stuff. We need to see if it can be replicated around the country. Does it work when Parker isn't there? Does it work when we're not operating at our lovely retreat center?
So I remember in the early days when we began meeting, that was actually after just the first 6 of us were identified, I think, to help you figure out what the heck you were doing and how we could take it to work with other groups. And we met in your family room, and we kind of just we learned it by doing some of these things together, working with poetry, doing whatever. But we also had a lot of laughs.
And we had a series of gatherings at Fetzer from people who said, we're interested in this. And of course, you two were part of that. And out of a series of meetings, we did this discernment that you were just talking about, like, who is really called to this? And who feels like kindred spirit, you know? And out of that came you two and 4 other people who then, either solo or in pairs, replicated the program in 4 locations around the country. And that was the period that you were just talking about,
Right,
Marcy,
right.
when we met at our house between each of those retreats. And it was this 8 retreat series, meeting seasonally over a 2-year period. And I just remember those meetings as so rich when we'd be sitting down and saying, now, what just happened? What went well? What didn't go so well? What does it mean to facilitate a group where the purpose is to make safe space for the soul so people can hear the inner teacher speak, make a claim on their lives? And then what's going to happen, what's likely to happen next based on Parker's experience with the pilot group. Those were such rich community building days, and to be sitting that way with friends in a shared vocation was really extraordinary. And since then, of course, things gotten so much bigger.
I was thinking about how it was really out of those experiences that when we came to begin the center and then consider how we're going to do facilitator preparation or invite other people into leadership, because surprise, surprise, these test sites were all successful as well and very well received. And there was more interest and call for these kind of programs. And I just remember out of that experience of how we sat with you and picked your brain about, not only picked your brain, really experienced some of the work together, shared our experiences. We realized this was never going to be a train-the-trainer model.
Right.
That it really was preparation rather than training, and that it was a kind of, I think of it now as a kind of embodied leadership development process that begins with people having some deep experience of their own with this approach before they imagine leading it for others. So I feel like we have stayed true to some of the original ways that we kind of stumbled into how to do this in the beginning, through our conversations with you.
Yeah, really emerging
together.
out of community and out of the identity and integrity of each facilitator.
Right.
And finding a process that I mean, I think this is one of the many areas where you two have been brilliant in your leadership to find a process that could replicate this thing that went on in our living room, but do it on a national scale in much more organizational terms. And I really feel that you've been faithful to that, and that continuing to operate, as you say, not out of a training model where you say, okay, here's the notebook, we're now going to go through and teach you how to turn the crank on this method, but really starting each time with, who are you in relation to this intentionality? How can you learn to hold a space that's safe for other people's souls? How can you do that in a way that honors the core principles that we have been able to articulate, that we take very seriously and hold very dearly, and yet embody those principles or honor those principles in your own unique way? And to find a process that supports that has been fabulous. And now almost 150 facilitators.
And you mentioned it being a national program, which is true, and yet we've continued to have these cohorts over these last 10 years be quite small, and in terms of what we felt was appropriate for the kind of process we want to have with these people and the depth we want to go with them. Another thing I was just thinking about that you said was there from the beginning, and we've carried this on, is a very careful discernment process that involves never just taking somebody on paper because they think this is what they are next to be doing, but instead to kind of, in some ways, take a journey with them, have a chance for them to meet us to meet them, to really look at their capacity to create that kind of hospitable yet charged space where you mentioned the words, I think, compassion, competent, and I'd say compelling as well as something that we're creating here. So it's been increasingly difficult to I think engage in that discernment process, but I think no less important for maintaining the integrity and the quality of the leadership of this work.
And difficult. Why? Because of size.
Because there's more interest now, which is that's the good news, and I'd say there's more interest of people that may read your books, not have had any experience of this, but imagine that they just want to jump right into becoming a facilitator. So there's a lot of conversations about why we feel that it needs to be approached from a basis of some experience. Ahead of time. The other thing that's difficult, but is also a great gift for us, is we tend to draw people who are already very competent and skilled in their own field. So they've been doing other kinds of facilitation or teaching or consulting or whatever it is, and are often skilled, whether it's physicians, teachers, educational leaders, clergy. All of those, we have people in all of those professions in our network, but this is asking them, in a sense, to step back, to become become a learner again of a different way, a way that is more spare and more much less about. It's not sage on the stage. It's much more guide on the side. It's much more. Asking me to create a space of almost spaciousness in myself before I can create that for the group. Yes. So it's subtle and exciting, I think.
I think one very exciting for me and very subtle. And one thing that we've always said that I think I understand the truth of this more every day. You have to be doing this for yourself in order to be doing it for others. That to come into this program and seek preparation as a facilitator means a commitment to be on your own journey toward inner truth, inner teacher, rejoining soul and role. So you typically prepare no more than, what, 15 people every year?
Yeah, initially it was 12. Now our cohorts are, I'd say 16 to 20 people a year.
Mm-hmm.
It involves a mentoring process. So we have our experienced facilitators serving in that role and creating a really nice sense of partnership and being an encourager and a conversation partner and so forth with the...
Yeah. And this, I know, Rick, in your work in organizational development on behalf of the center and financial development, you often come under pressure to ramp it up, which is the model of success in our society that flies right in the face of these things Marcy's talking about, right? And
yes, we do. A and B, every additional person that comes into our network of relationships brings with them their own organizational experience or default mode. Sometimes that's very helpful, and as is usually the case for each of us, there's also some disappointments or wounds there. And so we hold a lot of paradoxes in this work. We draw our lead from your thinking, Parker, in the richness of paradox, and one of the fundamental ones organizationally is to hold movement sensibilities, sensibilities that begin with our own sense of integrity and the difficult decisions that may need to be made so that I'm on my own path of aliveness and service. Movement sensibilities alongside organizational sensibilities. So our question early on when invited to form the center was, how can we create structures to support a movement? And how do we hold that paradox together, realizing that we are an educational nonprofit now, we are an organization, and yet we are wanting to be in service of integrity of individuals and a kind of wholeheartedness on the part of organizational life.
one of the phrases I've always loved that emerged between and betwixt us, and I think all of this work emerges between and betwixt us. You know, it's not full. It doesn't come full blown from the head of Zeus. It's what Martin Buber meant when he said all real living is meeting, and what happens between the parties who meet. But I've loved this phrase that emerged between us, that what we're attempting to do, what we're committed to doing, is building a chain of integrity.
Right.
So that every link in that chain, whether it's a financial link or a personal link in terms of facilitators or an institutional partnership, whatever it may be, staff relationships, has the same integrity as the link before. Right. And that if we can stay with that, we will have what I think we now have, which is an organization that is becoming more visible. I mean, the books have sold wonderfully well. We've touched thousands and thousands of lives directly. We've made a contribution to the national discourse indirectly in a very large way, but constantly testing that in these small-scale circles of trust where we learn what we need to learn about ourselves and the people we wish to serve, where we test our own integrity, where we generate the ideas that we then want to articulate, but at the same time, with all that kind of success, resisting the conventional model of success, which is McDonald's everywhere,
Turn it into
franchises,
a notebook,
and a training model. And I feel, on behalf of us, I feel very, very proud about that. And you're the ones who have really shepherded that process at all these levels. These are not gifts that I have. I don't have the patience to do that. I barely have the patience to get a book written. I don't have the patience to do all the negotiating needed to run a complex organization, especially in this countercultural or upstream way. So this notion of friendship, vocation, and shared gifts, diverse gifts that we honor in each other and that get shared to create a sum that's a whole that's larger than the sum of its parts. This is powerful, not just metaphor for us, but for me now it's lived experience, and I find that very, very, very exciting to actually have lived into things that as a younger person I thought, I believe that. I think that's true. I like that idea a lot. Not sure I've ever seen it. Now I've seen it. I know I've seen it.
It's been a tremendous gift for us, and not just in giving leadership to the center over these last 10 years, but to work so closely with you in doing that and beginning some of our early work of facilitator preparation in your home and growing this amazing community of colleagues now around the country that are carrying this work forward. So it just continues to be a great gift.
This conversation is helping me think of the arc in my own life of this work from when we first met. And I was fairly young in campus ministry, working with young adults around, as a friend of ours calls it, the big questions and worthy dreams that somebody in their early 20s hopefully is naturally holding. And now in this work with people in various professions, as you say, educators and people in a variety of very, very important and yet very challenging serving professions, this work is helping us all re-engage those big questions and worthy dreams, and yet at a mature point in our lives, realizing that we really still want to bring our very best, our wholest hearts, as it were, to this work. That is both challenging, and yet it's why we're here.
Yeah. It's amazing that when we ask, well, what is it that I have to bring in my work, our minds so often turn to the skills we learned at school or the knowledge we gathered there. And of course that's important. The people we work with are doing work where the technical demands are considerable. Right. And yet the ultimate gift that anyone has to bring, the deepest and most important gift, is full engagement of the self, full engagement of the heart with the mind and the skilled hand. And when that heart isn't there, all that skill and all that knowledge not only show up in weaker and weaker form, but can actually kind of turn to the dark side. I mean, it can become manipulation, it can become power and control, it can become the doctor who treats the patient like a machine to be fixed rather than a human being to be engaged in his or her own healing. And so as we talk about this stuff, we get into, very complex stuff about mind, body, spirit, heart interaction, and the research that shows that students learn better when they're in the presence of a whole teacher, or sick people get well faster, or learn to hold their incurable disease in a more life-giving way in the presence of a wholehearted physician. And yet the simple reality behind all of that is you have to establish hospitality and generosity to let that into the world. And as long as the settings in which we work don't have those qualities, that's not going to come forth. People are going to keep that tucked away because it makes them vulnerable. And the great gift, I think, that we've discovered is that I'm thinking of the fact that in the 25 years that we've, in one way or another, journeyed together, we've had our own struggles of the heart. We've had our own pains and suffering. Who hasn't over that period of time? And this friendship that has helped each of us carry some of that in our own lives, that has given the hospitable space and the generosity of heart to let a person deal with those issues in his or her own time and own level and own way. That personal gift that we give each other is all in the world we want to give to anybody else.
Right. And one of the things I'm thinking about is how so consistently over these years you've continued to ask yourself about where is your own vocation leading you or calling you, and you've consistently asked us to reflect on that as well. So never just assuming that we've created this thing together and now it's kind of out on its own and we just serve it, but that it's a dynamic relationship, that it's ever evolving. Our work with you is ever unfolding, and that's been one of the real exciting things about it as we've gotten to not just partner with you on programs, but the writing that you've been doing and how that's so contributed to the growth of this movement. Your relationship even to the center as an organization.
Right. That's been a very important, as you know, piece of this for me. Since the center got up and running as a formal organization in 1997, so 10 years of the center now, with all this prehistory as necessary foundation to that sort of demonstration plot, seed bed. But since the center got up and running, I've published The Courage to Teach, Let Your Life Speak, A Hidden Wholeness. Together, we've worked on Teaching with Fire, the poetry that sustains the courage to teach, Stories of the Courage to Teach. These books, of course, with our good friends Sam and Trader and Megan Scribner. So many amazing collaborators, colleagues, and also friends with a shared vocation who I wish were in the room with us, but it would need a much bigger room.
Don't forget Living the Questions.
Living the Questions, right.
Which was a book of that collection of amazing writing about the way your work has impacted so many.
And I can't imagine any of these books coming out had I just been out there on my lonesome trying to write. These are such communal, collaborative efforts from where I sit, so deeply influenced by dialogues that we've had. And of course, my wife, Sharon Palmer, has been very much part of the hosting of the program as well as the writing and development of the books. So I see all of this as so profoundly communal. And here I am now, not however old I was when we met. You mentioned being young a while ago, and I'd forgotten about that part of my life, even though in some ways I still feel very young.
I don't think you've forgotten that.
But I'm 68 years old, and I've had for 25 years a vocation that has taken me all over the country, on airplanes, different hotel every night, audiences ranging from a few to a few thousand, workshops, lectures, a kind of scatter shot approach that I guess Johnny Appleseed for a Quaker might be a better image, rather than the shotgun metaphor. Trying to spread seeds of possibility, and I value those opportunities and the many good people that's enabled me to meet, and the way in which the seed got spread, and some of it did germinate and grow, and yet in the last few years I've realized that I'm a very lucky person in that this shared work that we've been doing together is no longer a bunch of separate little trickles. It's a considerable stream. And a lot of people have been able to launch their boats on it, or drink from it, just as we have. It's work we need as much as anybody else, and so I want increasingly in the next however many years I'm given, for my personal work to become more publicly identified as what it already is, which is our collective work. So that my institutional affiliation now becomes with the Center for Courage and Renewal, and everything I do is publicly identified in relation to that vehicle, because these partnerships, these friendships, this shared vocation is for me the pearl of great price. That's priceless, beyond measure, and I want to name it and claim it as such.
Thank you, Parker.
Yes, thank